So, I have ADHD, as it turns out, everybody. I recently received this diagnosis, and to tell you all that I have been absolutely flabbergasted by this would be a complete understatement. I thought I already knew everything that I needed to know about ADHD. I've done my own research on it. I also have a psychology degree. It turns out I was completely wrong, because what I had in my brain was a very stereotypical version of what I think a lot of us think ADHD is. And it turns out that it's a very misunderstood, as well as misogynistic, we will come to find out, diagnosis. And I feel like it's important to share this with you all as a woman in her mid-30s, just now finding out that I have dealt with ADHD my entire life. I feel like this is just something that I really need and want to share with you all. And I know that I don't have to share this with you guys. There's a lot of things on this channel that I really didn't have to share with you all, but we're here anyway. I do like to be very open, or at least decently open with you all in terms of my mental health, my health in general. I think it's really important to share those things as a person on social media. If I can share my experience and my history and all of the stuff that I have learned so far about this, and if I can potentially help just even one person out there maybe see this in themselves, do their own research on it, and maybe find out that this is also something that they've been dealing with, that's great. Then my job is done and a goal has been achieved. So along with trying my best to explain like what ADHD actually is, I am going to share with you all my own personal history with it and some of my own personal tells, as I like to call them. And I want to preface this video by saying I am not an educator. Okay, I'm not a scientist, I am not a psychologist, I am not a health professional, I'm not trying to diagnose anybody out there. All I'm doing is just sharing my own experience with this, and that is seriously that. There's potentially a lot of other stuff that I could add to this conversation, but we're only going to be talking about a certain amount of things here, so this isn't an all-encompassing thing. If this is really seriously something that you think you might be dealing with as well, I would encourage you to do your own research, see a therapist, do whatever you gotta do on your end. I'm just sharing my experience, and that is it. So, all of that being said, thanks for clicking on the video, everyone. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. So I'm going to use the first book that I read to help me define what ADHD is. I'm going to be referencing it a lot. It's called Women with Attention Deficit Disorder by Sari Solden. This was actually recommended to me by my therapist as a good starting off point. Learning about ADHD, obviously and specifically if you are a woman, because ADHD can look very different depending on if you're a woman or not. I would definitely highly recommend this book. It is a little bit on the older side. In fact, the title of the book kind of gives that away, Women with Attention Deficit Disorder. ADD is actually, apparently, no longer really a thing anymore. It's now just kind of all lumped together as ADHD, which, by the way, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. So at the very beginning of the book, I'm just going to read this very quickly for you guys. Most people start out by telling you what ADHD is. I'd like to start out by telling you what ADHD is not. Because so many people who don't fit the common picture of ADHD rule themselves out prematurely, it is important to clear up the misconceptions and stereotypes that surround ADHD. So it is not just for kids, just for boys, just about hyperactivity, about a deficit of attention, or about being irresponsible or having a character flaw. Now, what it is a neurochemical condition, not a psychological one, that affects behavior on various levels: attention, activity, and impulsivity. A diagnosis of ADHD requires that these behaviors be chronic, meaning you've had them for a long time, and severe, impacting your life negatively in serious ways, more so than other people. Now, there are 3 types of ADHD. There is hyperactive impulsive, there's inattentive, and then a combination of both. Me personally, I think I have a combination of both, but still not 100% on that. Inattentive types have a more inward presenting ADHD, and it can look something along the lines of being disorganized, distracted, forgetful, having a hard time concentrating, stuff like that. The hyperactivity, impulsivity part of it is kind of more or less exactly what that sounds like. However, the hyperactivity part of it can take place in your brain. So you may not be like bouncing off the walls, boundless amounts of energy, but your brain, your thoughts can be very hyperactive.
Just lose it. I really miss Adam Sandler. Whatever happened to them? I need to go back and watch all the Adam Sandler movies. I really need to clean those shoes. Oh my gosh, my house is such a mess. Wait, how many days until I gotta get my puppy back? When did the bug guy come? Wait, what was I doing? Hold on a minute. Did I ever do that Old Navy return?
And that's actually what really was a huge light bulb moment for me when I was speaking to my therapist about it initially, because she explained that to me. I really thought that ADHD, I think like a lot of us out there, you think about like the little boys running around the classroom, disrupting the class, but it's so much more than that. I just have always dismissed ADHD because that just wasn't me. But turns out the hyperactivity, it can be all mental, all going on in your brain. So I'm actually going to read some of the tells that she lists out in the book regarding ADHD. That way we can get like kind of a little bit more information on what this can look like. So you may have issues with stimulation filtration, such as feeling bombarded in department stores or grocery stores, feeling overloaded and exhausted after a day at the office. Do you shut down in the middle of the day? Is it hard for you to shut out nearby sounds and distractions? Also, time, money, stuff, having issues with all of those things. Is packing for trips difficult for you? Trouble meeting deadlines, planning, prioritizing tasks? Is balancing your checkbook something that's difficult for you? Do you have trouble remembering to pay bills on time? Do you spend a lot of your energy on organization? You start each day determined to be organized and making lists and all of that stuff only for it to fall away later? Do you feel like you are passing for normal, quotes in quotations? Do you feel like an imposter? Do you often go blank in conversations? Do you have difficulties with small talk? Do you form relationships with people who function as caretakers for you? Can a request for one more thing put you emotionally over the top? Do you feel overloaded or depleted? Do you feel depressed because you can't get anything done in your life? If someone disturbs one of your systems, do you have a strong angry reaction? Do you drink an excessive amount of coffee or other caffeine throughout the day? Have you had issues with substance abuse? Do you feel you are always in a fog or your motor is always running? Do you feel your mind is hyperactive, always thinking of new ideas? Do you find it very difficult to meet the demands of an 8-to-5 job? Are you clueless as to how others lead a consistent, regular life? And then in your history, were you ever called a daydreamer as a child? Were you called messy, spacey, lazy, selfish, or oversensitive? Were you clumsy and always bumping into things? Did you change schools or colleges more than the average? Do you change jobs frequently? Do you move frequently? Were you either extremely shy or extremely social and talkative as a child? So those are just a few of the things that she lists out. Hopefully that kind of gives a decent overview of like what we're dealing with here. There are so many things that go into ADHD and what it can look like, and it's very, very complex. Like, it's very complex to diagnose someone with ADHD, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Now, again, I am really speaking here mainly from a woman's perspective, so just bear this in mind. While someone with ADHD may have a lot of quote-unquote deficiencies, we get really, really good at masking that very early on in life. We end up finding workarounds for these things. We may be overly organized and prepared for things. We may make a ton of lists and just really like stay on top of all of these systems that we have, because we kind of know in the back of our brain, like, if one thing goes wrong, the whole thing is completely tanked. So you may think as an adult, I don't deal with this stuff because I am very organized. I am able to keep on top of my stuff. I pay my bills on time, all of these things. But you may just have a lot of systems in place to make you that way. In fact, a lot of times people with ADHD are some of the most high achieving people out there and extremely organized, but it's to the point where it is, I don't want to say excessive, but it takes a lot of brain power and work, extra work, to make that the case. Now, additionally, ADHD can differ from person to person. No one case, I guess, of ADHD is going to look exactly the same. And also, depending on whatever's going on in your life at that moment, may exacerbate your ADHD or it may lessen it. You know, if you are in a place in your life where you have a lot of support, your systems are in place, you have a job that works well with ADHD, you may not really be struggling too much at that moment in time. But also, if you have a lot of stuff going on in your life in that moment, not a lot of support systems, etc., it can exacerbate your ADHD symptoms as well. It's not linear. That's all I'm trying to say. Another thing that can make ADHD very difficult to diagnose is that it comes with a lot of morbidities. Wow, that is so hard for me to say. There's a lot of other stuff out there that can look like ADHD. Let's just say that. It can look like anxiety, depression, BPD, bipolar disorder, PTSD, tons of stuff. It shares a lot of, I hate the word symptoms. It shares a lot of tells with other mood disorders and stuff out there. ADHD is not a mood disorder, by the way, but it can look like one. And oftentimes, people with ADHD will have those other things too, anxiety, depression, etc. It kind of brings that stuff out of us. So it can be very hard to diagnose and distinguish between all of that too, especially, again, if you are an adult. And that's why it's really important to know your history and to know yourself and make sure that you are advocating for yourself. If you do speak to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whoever it may be, your doctor, whoever it may be, it's important that they have your entire history from childhood onward to be able to parse all of that out. I wanted to start off with this complexity because ADHD is just not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. Again, I think a lot of us think of ADHD as the little boys running around the classroom, right? And there's a good reason for that. Now, I'm not going to go into the specific history of ADHD and how it came about and all of that stuff, because honestly, I don't really even know myself. I only know like tiny little bits and pieces. And this isn't the History Channel, so we're not getting into it. However, the early initial findings of ADHD, the testing around it and all of that stuff was done and based off of little boys, and specifically white boys. So it completely left out entire factions of people. In fact, for a while, I'm pretty sure I read this, but for a while, it wasn't even thought that little girls, that women or whatever could even quote unquote get ADHD. Like, this was really considered a thing that only little boys, little white boys had. Now, societal norms and traditional gender roles do play a big part in this. You know, girls are expected to be nice and quiet, empathetic, obedient, etc. And because ADHD can disrupt these norms, girls learn very early on to mask all of that stuff. And then they go unnoticed for most of their life until later in life, when big life changes, oftentimes having children or going to college, going into premenopause, etc., can really disrupt their lives to the point where we're just like, what the heck is even going on? But yeah, if we are told all of our lives to just be a certain way, don't make waves, don't make a fuss, be organized, pay attention, be smart, get good grades, don't be messy. You know, don't speak up about your hardships or any of the stuff that you're going through. We're going to mask it pretty early on, and we're going to internalize all of those feelings that we're feeling. And then it starts to turn into the anxiety, the depression, and all of this other stuff. Right now, the average age of detecting ADHD in males is about 6 or 7 years old, whereas in females, it's 36. 36 is the average age of detecting ADHD. That is a huge discrepancy, a huge difference. And it really does show how there is just a chunk of women, of girls out there who were just forgotten about and lost. I think like there's a lot of terminology for us, like the lost girls, I think are one of them. We have always had to work extra hard, extremely hard to keep up with everyone else. Women out there who have been going to a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever for a lot of their life, and they're getting medication and stuff for all of these other comorbidities wow, that they think that they have, that they think are like the answer, quote unquote, to all of their problems, when it's actually ADHD this entire time. And they can be taking all of these harsh, potentially harmful medications to be helping with these things when the root cause of it all is not being looked into. All of that being said, you guys, I want to talk about my own personal history with ADHD. I'm going to try to speed through this as quick as I can for you guys, but I'm hoping that, again, just giving my own personal experience with it can hopefully help out other people out there who are watching this and kind of wondering in the back of their brain too. So let's get into it. I was a very, very quiet child. In general, very quiet. Didn't tend to make much of a fuss. I kept to myself in school, and I was always like the star student. Not necessarily like academically, but I remember constantly getting on my report cards and progress reports and stuff like, I wish I had 1,000,000 of Christina's in my class. She's so quiet and, you know, obedient and blah, blah, blah. But while I was quiet in class, I was also quiet like on the playground and stuff. Like it was, I've mentioned this many times on the channel before, but it was borderline impossible for me to make friends as a kid. You know, I'd have sleepovers occasionally and, you know, people to invite to birthday parties and such, but I just remember being super, super lonely. And it was something that always confused me. Like, why is this so hard for me? How are other kids able to just go in there and make friends? Like, it literally has never made sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me, quite frankly. I was in my own little world also on top of that. You could not pay me to pay attention in class, in any grade at all. I was not there and I was not present. I was busy playing with erasers and pencils in my desk. I could not pay attention to anything that was being taught to me in school. So, you know, while other kids were learning multiplication tables and how to write in cursive, I was in my own little world. And then before I knew it, you know, the day would be over, the class would be over, and I would be like, oh my gosh, I didn't learn anything. I think a big kind of distinction here too is that it bothered me. It bothered me at the time. It caused me a lot of stress and anxiety. Like, I knew that I should be paying attention, but I just didn't. I felt myself getting behind. And honestly, like, I have absolutely no idea how I made it through school. Like, I no clue. Couldn't tell you at all in any way, shape, or form how I made it through school. But I know in the 3rd grade, like, talking about cursive writing and multiplication tables, like I remember it very vividly in my brain. That's when I got my first C in math and got in a lot of trouble for it, and it just kind of went downhill from there. So for me, in the 5th 5th and the 6th grade, they started splitting off the class for like English and also for math. And this was kind of to like help acclimate you to middle school and high school and such. And I ended up being in the lowest level of math possible. I have always struggled with math. Math has always been historically has always been very difficult for me. And then in the 6th grade, we moved in the middle of the semester, and that's when everything just fell down the dang toilet. And I was starting to fail the 6th grade. We had to have a parent-teacher conference and all of this stuff. And honestly, this is a hard memory for me because it's carried a lot of guilt and shame with me throughout my entire life because I just felt really stupid. I felt like I was stupid and lazy. I was just disappointing everybody. You know, this is something that I got into a lot of trouble for, and it was all on me. It was my fault. I was doing something wrong. I was failing, and I wasn't supposed to fail in school. And I didn't know how to communicate at the time that I couldn't pay attention. And again, like, you have to understand, I'm a child, first of all. Second of all, ADHD is just really not a thing. And it's not a thing especially for little girls. I think even if I was to say, hey guys, I'm not paying attention in class, so yeah, no duh, I'm failing. Not to mention we just moved, and we moved in the middle of the semester, and I'm at a new school and I don't have any friends and all of this stuff. I still think that me communicating that effectively wouldn't have gotten me anywhere anyway, because again, ADHD was not a thing. Like, I still don't think I would have been screened for it or a learning disability or anything like that. I think that it just still would have been, well, you're still lazy and you're still stupid, so you're gonna have to buck up, buttercup, and figure it out, you know? I think either way, this situation, the outcome would have been the same. Essentially, though, the rest of my public school career was pretty much a blur. I dived very heavily at that point into music, learning the violin and percussion and all of this stuff. Like, that was my life. I did okay in school. Once again, couldn't tell you how or why at all. I think mostly it was just because our public school was an absolute joke, if I had to, guess. But the hardest thing for me for the rest of public school was just, again, making friends, keeping friends. That anxiety of you're in science class and you need a partner and you don't know who to pick or like who to sit next to on the bus, or you're going on a field trip and you have no one to hang out with. Like, that was my entire school experience, and I still have nightmares about it to this day. So awesome. College is really when everything changed for me. And I could go on and on and on about it. I could make a whole freaking video about how difficult college was for me. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did that. I think it's still out there if you want to watch it. But it was, again, absolutely traumatic and a huge chalking point again for myself and my therapist, because it was just terrible for me. And this is where, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people with undiagnosed ADHD can crash and burn, as I did, is going into college. Or you either just skip it completely, or you go to college but you drop out, or whatever the case may be. College is usually when sometimes some of the first signs can present themselves. And a big part of that is because this is the first time that you are really kinda truly on your own and expected to sort of fend for yourself. To briefly sum up my college experience with you all, I have it all written. Actually, I have this whole thing scripted out, by the way. Let me just read it off my screen here for you. So, changed majors 3 to 4 times, made friends and lost friends for reasons I still don't understand. I discovered coffee for the first time and was addicted to the point where I was having heart issues. I dropped out of classes because I was failing and couldn't keep up with the work. I worked on projects and papers often the day before they were due. I never studied. Never. I barely did the required readings. I skipped classes, and I was so abysmally tired during college that I spent basically all of my free time just sleeping. In my junior year of college is when it all came to a head though. One of my semesters, I unwittingly took some of the hardest classes in my particular major, psychology. Lo and behold, I was failing one of those classes. I ended up getting on academic probation because of it. And it was because of this that I also was starting to look into going to other schools. In my junior year of college, I was like, forget this, I can't stay here another year. Get me the crap out of this school because something is very, very wrong here. It didn't happen, by the way. And then despite all of that, I did end up graduating a semester early anyway. And thankfully, this is something that I have already kind of been working on, dealing with my trauma with school, because in the past 5 or so years, I have really reshaped my thinking around it. Because again, like, I've carried that guilt and shame with me throughout my entire adult life. Within the past few years, I've come to realize, like, you know what? A lot of that crap wasn't really my fault. It really wasn't, because I was clearly struggling during that time. Very, very much so struggling. And I never got a lifeline. Our school system in general is so broken, and it's so sad that we still have not done anything to really, like, radically fix it, whatever that may mean. Kids like me get lost in the dust of it all because we are still going by this so archaic school system. You know, we're teaching kids how to learn stuff in one way and only one way. And this is something that I have always advocated for and have done my own research on it and stuff when I was going to graduate school and stuff. Like, there is no one size fits all with people. Like, we all have different abilities and different strengths, different weaknesses, different ways of learning, this, that, and the other. And this traditional way of teaching our children is just, it's just so stupid, and it doesn't make any dang sense, and it leaves so many kids behind in the dust. And then they internalize that crap for the rest of their life because they feel so stupid, and they're told that they're stupid and lazy and not doing things the right way or whatever. So I could go on and on and on about it. We don't have time for it. Point is that I have been I've already been, like, kind of giving myself a bit of grace with that. So the rest of my life, I'm not going to detail out for you guys. There's not even really that much to say, but in terms of the ADHD, like, the sheer amount of times that I have moved as an adult is crazy and ridiculous. The amount of jobs that I've switched over to, the hardships that I've had in my jobs. I've also been, unfortunately, in a number of terrible and abusive relationships in my past, which statistically, again, people with ADHD are more likely than not to get into those kinds of relationships. I have my current 9-to-5 job. I've been doing YouTube here, obviously. Again, this is something that I've talked about many times here on the channel before, but I have struggled. The 2 jobs that I have, and having a relationship, having a family, managing the household, just all of these things now on my plate. And ever since that's been a thing, I've felt my health just been dealing with a lot of, chronic fatigue, and I don't know, just the anxiety, the depression, like, all of this stuff that I've kind of always had just got exacerbated within the past few years. And I've been working on it. I've been doing therapy now for a number of years. I've been working on my diet. I thought it was my allergies, like working on my allergies, working on my health. So again, cut to last year when Tampa J, was diagnosed with ADHD. And he has made that public on his channel. He's talked about it I double checked with him to make sure I was okay to talk about it a little bit with you guys on here. And he said that was fine. He found out he had ADHD. And so I did my own research on it, looked into it myself and stuff, because obviously I want to understand what my partner has and what he's been going through and such. As I was looking up stuff, I was like, doesn't everybody feel this way though? Like, isn't this an everybody problem? Like, doesn't everybody have constant racing thoughts that never seem to cease? Doesn't everybody have like some time blindness and, you know, some forgetfulness, this, that, and the other? Like, there were a lot of things that I didn't relate to, I didn't see in myself, but there were a lot of other stuff. Or like he would like show me like memes or articles or whatever it may be regarding ADHD, and a lot of the time I was like, this sounds like me, like that, but I deal with that too, but I don't have ADHD, but that sounds like me. So I don't know, like I it's always just sort of been in the back of my brain. But again, the picture that I had was this little boy running around the classroom, screaming and yelling and disrupting everybody. And that wasn't me. That wasn't my lived experience. I'm calm as can be. I'm quiet. I can sit down and read books and not get bored and all of this stuff. So I just kind of just poo-pooed it and moved on my way. Let's cut to how I actually came across that I had this and got my diagnosis and stuff. Very recently, our dear friends Brad and Amanda were here. We had a lovely time with them. We were out and about every single day doing a bunch of fun stuff, and it was a blast. It was one of the most fun times I've had in my life, truly. But there were struggles for me during their time here. Now, I always struggle. I just told you about all of my struggles. We know I struggle. Nothing that happened with them was like out of the ordinary for me, but for some reason this time around, it was just really noticeable to me how much I struggled with very basic things. Like, for example, we went to the pancake pantry. That restaurant was so obnoxiously loud, I couldn't think straight. Like, I wanted to run out of there screaming. Like, at the beginning when we were initially sat down, it was so loud. Thankfully, it settled down rapidly afterwards because we were there a little bit later in the day. And how is nobody else noticing that and having an issue with that? You know, like, why am I the one that's like, this is terrible and I can't stand this? Like, something so normal and simple is just being in a restaurant where other people are eating and it's like nails on a chalkboard for me. I don't get it. And then we went to the aquarium, and the aquarium was just overstimulating, tons of kids running around screaming, lots of fish, which we know I'm squeamish of anyway, so we're not starting off on a good foot. But it also smelled in there, like smelled so bad in some places. I had to speed run through 75% of that entire aquarium. And then also like my time blindness, you know, we had plans to make it out the door every day at a certain time, you know, nice and early and this and that. And I can't get my butt out the door. I've noticed like in the mornings, if I'm, you know, doing my makeup and doing the hair and getting dressed and taking a shower and blah, 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 like all of this stuff that I have to do to get my butt out the door. And I just don't seem to have any concept of just how long that takes me. And this is such a seemingly normal and easy thing to be able to figure out, and yet we're not getting out the door at the time that we said that we wanted to get out the door at, which I felt terrible about. So I don't know, I just like had all of this stuff at the forefront of my brain for some reason. So finally, when they left, something compelled me to just look it up again. Just look up ADHD again. Clouds finally parted for me, and I realized like, this might be me. This actually might be me. Like, it just all started to click. Thankfully, I had my therapy appointment that same day, talked to my therapist about it. We took a assessment. She also felt that this was a very high possibility for me, gave me the book to read and stuff. My therapist, whom I've been talking to now for quite some time, and she does know my history and and all of this stuff, she didn't even really see it until I brought it up myself, because I do have all of this other stuff that kind of clouds it, that can look like so much like ADHD, the anxiety, the depression, the trauma. Just as an aside too, but she thought that YouTube was the reason why I probably don't have it, because YouTube takes time and effort and energy and like paying attention to detail and, you know, not quitting and, you know, stuff like that. But it's funny because like YouTube is such the exception in my life. And I've said this from the very beginning, but even again, before I had any clue that ADHD could be a thing with me, that YouTube is such an anomaly in my life. It is an outlier, because normally by now, yeah, you're darn right, I would have quit by now. This has been some of the hardest that I've ever had to work in my life, and it's been incredibly challenging for me. I digress here with all of this, but after some sessions and stuff, we finally, you know, she diagnosed me with ADHD, and here we are. Receiving this diagnosis later in life, it can bring up a lot of feelings for people. You essentially go through a grieving cycle. As Jay said to me, it changes everything, and yet it changes nothing at all. Everything that you thought you knew about yourself, everything I thought that I knew about myself, kind of goes down the toilet a little bit. But at the same time, nothing's changed. I'm still the exact same person that I am, that I always have been. And you even go through like a denial process where you're just like, is this really what's going on? Am I just making this up? Doesn't everybody feel this way? Well, maybe it could be this, it could be that, it could be looking like this, but it's not really that. Like you kind of just go back and forth with yourself. You feel sad. You feel angry. You feel like you could have been something else if only you had known. Like you grieve a life that you could have had. It's hard. It's a really, really hard process. And unfortunately, like any grieving process, you just have to go through it. You have to allow yourself to feel those feelings. And all of those feelings are valid, by the way. The more I'm learning about it, the more books I'm reading and stuff, and I see myself in those experiences, the more and more accepting it feels to me, and the more seen I feel. You know, again, like there's a lot of sadness, a lot of grief, a lot of anger, and all of this stuff, but at the same time, there's such a beautiful feeling of acceptance and grace that I feel like I can finally give myself, because I've been really trying hard, you know, the past few years or so to give myself a little bit more grace. But there still has always been something in the back of my brain of like, you lazy piece of crap, like just go do something, you know? Like, why is this so hard for you? You go through all of that negative self-talk. And now that I realize like this is what I've been dealing with and this is what I have, I feel more able to rest and to forgive myself and forgive other people for, you know, the past and all of the stuff that has happened, all the stuff that I've carried with me all of these years. Like, I just feel more able to just let it go, to accept it and to, you know that it happened and feel the feelings that I need to feel about it. But I'm finally getting at a place where I feel like I can start healing from it and start moving on from it and start feeling like I can actually have a more successful and a healthier life ahead of me. And that's a beautiful feeling. And this is really, again, another huge reason why I wanted to make this video for you guys. ADHD or not, there are just so many expectations on all of us to work hard and to perform and be productive. Our worth is often equated to how productive we are, like what we are putting out there into the world. Society puts all of this pressure on us to be a certain way. To that, I just want to say that I am absolutely done with all of that nonsense and all of the things that society and other people want me to be and expect me to be. I have been trying my entire life, whether consciously or not, to be that. To be this version of myself that I was always going to have to struggle extra hard to be. And I know that there's a lot of things out there that make it to where we have to work and we have to go to school and like all of this stuff, but at the same time, like, it's just so hard, and having to conform to all of that has led me to the worst health that I've ever had. Some of the worst conditions that I've ever been in is because I had to work extra hard to do more and to be more, to live up to what was expected of me. You know, you don't have to be neurodivergent or have a chronic illness or a disability or whatever it is to feel that way. As a woman, speaking to women here, we are expected to be more and perform more and do so much stuff for so little in return, and still get criticized for every single little tiny detail thing that we do in our lives. I know myself as a creator on this platform who happens to be a female, I get misogynistic and nasty, stupid comments every single day of my life because I am not upholding to these standards of what a woman should be. Also, by the way, thank you so much to all of you incredibly nasty and mean people out there who have told me in the past on my channel that my house is a disaster and a mess and cluttered. Thank you guys. Thank you to all the people out there who have told me that I talk in circles and I don't make any sense and I just go on and on and my videos are unstructured. Thank you to all of you as well, because you guys helped me kind of puzzle together ADHD for me, as unfortunately a lot of people with ADHD often get told these things. So you guys proved that for me, or helped, you know, form that for me. So in a weird way, thank you guys, I guess, and also go touch grass and leave me the hell alone. So obviously I'm still pretty early into this diagnosis. There's still like tons of stuff that I don't know, that I'm looking forward to researching and reading and all of this stuff. I'm not sure at this point like where I'm going with any of this. I don't know if I want to start, you know, looking into medications, but I'll definitely keep you guys posted on this. Like, we can definitely talk about this a lot more. I just feel like this is going to be such a huge part of my life now going forward. I really hope that this video was, again, helpful for people out there. If any of this at all resonates with you, if it kind of makes sense to you, if you see yourself in any of this, I would just highly encourage you to, again, do your own research, look into it yourselves. Obviously, I'm going to suggest and advocate for therapy, speaking to a therapist. I know that that's not the most accessible option out there. Unfortunately, it's ridiculous that it's not, but this is where we're at. But if you can, I would highly suggest it. There are a lot of free assessments out there too that can be helpful. And just again, like, this is something that I try to say often here on this channel. If you are just in general someone out there who feels isolated and weird and like you don't fit in and like there's something wrong with you but you can't put your finger on it, I just want you to know that you're not alone. You are not alone in this world. There are so many other people out there who feel the same way. I see you and I feel you, and it's not a bad thing to be different. It's not a bad thing. That being said, I want to acknowledge how difficult it is, though, to be different. And it's painful. It's painful to go through your life just feeling like you're on the outside. And that is a very valid feeling. You know, I never want to present myself on this channel as someone who is perfect, as someone who gets it, who has the perfect life and the perfect relationship and the perfect house, and I just do everything correctly and do everything that I say and blah, 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 blah. That is not ever, 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 ever been the goal of this channel. A lot of people on this platform and other social media platforms are gonna tell you otherwise, and they're gonna show you these picture perfect things and everything's happy and smiling and the weather's perfect and blah, blah, blah. That's not life. It's not real life. Don't compare yourself to those people. Just live your own life. If you don't feel good, if you want to rest, if you want to curl up in bed and cry all day, you should do that. You should be more than validated in those feelings, and please just do that. Feel your feelings, do what feels right to you. Also know that these things are temporary. You can get out on the other side of things. You can push forward in a way that is kind to yourself, that gives yourself the grace to do it on your terms and in your own time. And please know that whatever struggle that you are going through in your life, you can get out on the other side of it. You always do, and you always can. And it may not be easy and it may not be linear, but you can do it. And please, please, please take this channel as an example that is possible, because all the things that I just shared with you seemed impossibly hard at one point in my life. And that's not even absolutely everything that I shared with you all. There's so much stuff in my life that has just seemed so impossibly hard, and I didn't see any way out on the other side of it. And I can firmly say to you that although the struggles are not over, they'll never be over, and there'll always be something else coming up or whatever. I can firmly say to you guys that I am in one of the best places that I've ever been in my entire life. Like, I am so, even though I'm going through like so much, I am so happy and so blessed and have so much abundance and amazing things in my life right now that I never, ever, ever, ever could have imagined were possible. So it's possible. It's possible, you guys. Like, you can do it too. You can, and I believe in you. The hard times will pass. Hard times will pass. So this video was long enough. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate you. Thanks for listening, especially if you made it this far. I hope that some people out there, again, were able to glean something from this. And again, this is something we can continue to talk about in the future. We only scratched the surface. We only scratched the surface on all of this stuff. And yeah, we can keep talking about it in the future if you guys would like. So yeah, thank you all so much again for watching. I appreciate it. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I will see you in the next one.